Welcome to this meditation and Dharma talk. My name is Jonathan Foust, and I am delighted to have you here. I want to start off by thanking a number of people, as I usually do. First, to thank our mindful movement teacher before this class, and to thank our mindful dialogue leaders after class, Ray and Tara. Also, a big thank you to Glenn Harrison and Leo Gimo for producing this event. It takes a fair amount of energy to make it happen. And on Monday nights here online, we've got a very cool flow set up for you. If you'd like to best prepare yourself for the meditation, you can join the mindful movement class. And afterward, if you'd like to connect with like-minded people, really good people, and facilitated by really good people, Ray Manioki and Tara Cassidy, you can join that, and it's a chance to talk about your practice, anything from the talk that inspired you or particularly irritated you. If you'd like to learn more about the links to the mindful movement and to the mindful dialogue after, you can check my Facebook page or my website, and all that information is there for you. I also want to acknowledge the Insight Meditation Community of Washington for hosting this event, and also to my good friends at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington, which have been the physical host for Monday night all these years, with the exception of the last year. We will get back together again, most probably, I think, in the fall. In the meantime, if you'd like to know more about this class, more resources for your meditation practice and so forth, I have a mailing list. You can sign up for that on my website. And speaking of signing up for things on my website, you can also explore making a donation. It takes a fair amount of actually time and energy and cost to make these available for all. And it's all offered freely. But if you feel inspired, please feel free to make some donation to help this thing moving forward. And as I like to say, support me in my lavish lifestyle. All my talks are available online. And the bottom line is I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be with you, delighted you've taken the time here for your practice. So our exploration for this session is on the power of gratitude. It's just amazing. And gratitude is a very, very powerful way to begin a meditation. So we're going to start off by reflecting on gratitude, and we're also going to explore a little bit of engaging into the body. We'll explore some concentration practice so you can gather attention. We'll explore opening into mindfulness, and we'll explore for a time just resting in presence. So if you like, let's start off with a little bit of movement. You may know this move. I do this all the time. I find it really, really helpful, especially when I'm sitting a lot. I've had a number of neck issues, which are somewhat related to tech neck, I think, which comes from this sort of like slumping and falling forward. So hands in hitchhiker position. Point your thumbs behind you. Bring your fists about equal with your ears. And now just very, very gently, very slightly, no strain, open the elbows out to the side and focus on drawing your shoulder blades close together. And now you want to focus on your breath. So taking a long, slow, deep inhalation. Glide right into the exhalation. If you like, you can close your eyes. And focus on the contraction between the shoulder blades and sense, if you can, lengthening the in-breath and lengthening the out-breath, slow and smooth and deep. You might match the length of the in-breath with the length of the out-breath. Concentrate, draw the shoulder blades close together. What's happening here as you actively draw the shoulder blades together is you're lengthening muscles along the front of the chest. You're taking the slack out of the muscles that get chronically lengthened in the back of your back. And if you do this for maybe 2 more breaths, that's going to be about 1 minute. So we're going to get a nice, full, sustained contraction. 1 more breath. And now slowly reach your arms up overhead and take some time just to alternate, stretch from one side to the other. If you like, you can smile. And then slowly let your hands float down by your sides. You can do this ultra slow, you can do it medium slow, and just let yourself begin to draw your attention inward. Relax your breath and take a few moments just to feel, just to be. I'd like to offer a little contemplation. That is to reflect on 3 things in your life right now that you are grateful for or you appreciate. It might be just something right now, maybe perhaps taking this time for yourself. Maybe it's about just feeling safe right now. But let your mind kind of wander and settle on 3 things that you appreciate, 3 things you're grateful for. And you might even like to bring your hand to your heart. And just take a few moments to reflect on what gratitude feels like inside. This can be a really helpful way to kind of prepare an inner space for meditation. You might let your hand float down to your lap. And as part of gathering your attention, you might now begin to slow down, deepen, and smooth out your breathing. If you like, you can breathe in slowly to the count of 4 and exhale to the count of 4. Notice where you feel the breath on the inside right now. And now relax your breath and feel your breath free floating, effortless. And you might just sense where you feel the breath, the most predominant on the inside right now. An essential component of this practice is arriving and relaxing and receiving the moment. And you might sense if you can smooth out and soften your forehead. Could you relax and soften the muscles around your eyes? And you might let your awareness flow all through your face. Let the face be expressionless. How fully can you relax your tongue and the lips? A sense of relaxation spreading through your jaw. Is it possible to soften right along the occipital ridge, right along the base of the skull? The back of the neck. The tops of the shoulders. And you might imagine or feel your arms like heavy drapes hanging from the shoulders, and take some time to sense down through the length of the arms, down through the elbows, and down through the wrists. The backs of the hands. And could you soften the palms and sense from the inside the space inside the hands, the space inside the thumbs and fingers. And sensing through your lower back and the buttocks. And the belly. And the lower abdomen. The floor of the pelvis. And feeling now the heaviness, the weight, the length of your legs. From the hip joints down through the knees. The backs of the knees. The kneecaps. Sensing from the knees down through the ankles. The tops of the feet and the toes. The soles of the feet and the heels. Can you sense now the whole body at ease? And you might just lightly scan inside. Is there anything inside right now that could relax or soften? Is there anything that could let go? You might again sense where you feel the breath the most predominant on the inside right now. And sense if you can blend both relaxation and the sense of concentration. And you might let your attention focus either on your breath, where you feel the breath the most predominant, or perhaps focusing your attention at the belly or the nostrils. Or you might explore another anchor, such as the sounds. Or if you relax the palms, sensing inside the hands, pulse, or tingling. Whatever anchor you choose, for this next period of time, let this be your primary source of attention. The mind will naturally wander. But when you notice the mind far away, notice how gently you can bring your attention back, re-relax and re-arrive here. Feel the breath, feel sounds, feel sensations in the palms. A sacred moment in this practice is the moment when you realize your mind is lost in a dream. Take your time to re-arrive, relax and soften and feel. And gently re-engage with your anchor, with your point of concentration. And you might inquire, are you dreaming? And is it possible to begin again? To again sense what right now could relax, what could soften? And you might sense how intimately you can feel the next 3 breaths on the inside. And you might notice that when you bring your attention in a very focused way, there's a very profound sense of arriving in the here and now. As I breathe in, I'm aware of breathing in. As I breathe out, I'm aware of breathing out. And you may notice as well that you might possibly be able to relax so deeply that you can feel your anchor in the foreground and simultaneously be aware of the background, aware of what is changing, aware of the filter through which you are perceiving your experience. And here you might elect, if it feels right for you, to widen and broaden your attention, noticing the entire field of change, sensing the stream or the flow of your experience and who you are as the observer. And again, when the mind is lost, just gently re-arrive, relax, feel the anchor, and then again broaden and widen. Awake to what is changing, and awake to what it means to let things be. In these remaining 5 minutes or so, you might refresh the practice, sensing this field of relaxation. You might again feel your forehead smooth. Relax your tongue and let it fill your lower jaw. Feel the weight of your arms. And sense as you soften the belly, the delicate movement, the belly rising on the in-breath, falling on the out-breath. Feel from the inside the palms, fingers and thumbs. The soles of the feet and the heels. And deeply relaxed. At the same time, alert and awake. And you might again sense your anchor, your point of concentration. And for the next 3 breaths, how intimately can you feel it on the inside? Can you sense this quality of non-judging awareness? Your capacity to be intimately awake and at the same time to be free from any desire to change your experience. And you might explore in these remaining minutes a deepening sense of relaxation, allowing any sense of control to drop away. Let your anchor fall away. Notice what is changing. Notice the sense of that which is aware right now. And is there anything right now that could relax or soften or let go? Is there anything that could relax or soften or let go even more than that? Where do you feel the breath on the inside right now? And you might very gently deepen and smooth out the breath. As I breathe in, I'm aware of breathing in. As I breathe out, I'm aware of breathing out. With your eyes closed, you might let your head just drift slowly to the left and to the right. And as part of your practice now, let your body begin to move and stretch and flow in any way that feels most alive and most pleasurable for you. Take your time now for your transition. Welcome. Many, many years ago, I was at a dinner party. And at this dinner party, we were talking about meditation and prayer. What's the difference between meditation and prayer? And one fellow there who I really admired said very spontaneously, he said, I think maybe the highest prayer is just two words. Of course, the whole table turned to hear more. He said, wouldn't you say that the highest prayer is thank you? That was really touching to me. I never forgot that because I think that touches into the essence. Thank you. This moment is perfect. There's nothing to add. There's nothing to take away. There's no desire other than to be here fully and receive this. Tonight, I'd like to talk a little bit about gratitude. And gratitude is this doorway that can open you to the mystery. It's a way that you can shift your consciousness, and also a way that you can change your state, and also a way that can help you to kind of reframe your life experience and find new possibilities where they didn't exist before. I've been really grateful to have this talk on my mind this last week because I've been doing all kinds of little experiments this week that I look forward to sharing with you. What I'd like to talk about is, as always, in four parts. Part one, swimming upstream. Gratitude goes directly against your innate built-in negativity bias. Part two is about setting the stage. What are the conditions that cultivate this sense of gratitude and everything that goes with it? Part three is about the practice of gratitude, of using gratitude as a way to work with challenges that come up in your life. And part four is looking at gratitude as a way of life, and gratitude as a way that can inform how you live day to day to day. You may be aware of the story that goes way, way back to some spirit who was guiding someone to experience the difference between heaven and hell. And first they visited hell. And here there were people sitting at these tables with this really bounteous food, and they had these spoons that had long, long handles. The spoons were so long that they couldn't feed themselves. So they were tortured, starving, surrounded by bounty, but unable to eat. When they went to heaven, the same exact scene, the beautiful, beautiful food, the long spoons, but in heaven, they were feeding each other. Hell is when you're in fear and you're naturally concerned with you. It's all about self-preservation. When we're not in fear, those moments of heaven, if you will, we're suddenly in this interrelational, this interdependent world. And I imagine on some level that you can sense this in your life, this innate negativity bias. Awareness is just scanning for danger. It's designed to help you stay alive. It's focused on self-preservation. So that sense of when you're in a car, that there's a function going, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. But there's something about evolutionary biology that's so interesting, because it was when we as a species began to cooperate. Suddenly we had this tremendous power by being able to communicate, by being able to hunt together. We were able to move up the food chain by sharing ideas and maybe stealing ideas, but nonetheless, we were aware of others, and through that, we began to become more relational, and we began to evolve our brains into our shared collective experience. And it's very tied in to this inherent sense of our negativity bias, but the possibility of using gratitude as a way to open up into new realms. Part of that hard wire for negativity through our relationships comes from comparing. Our barometer is based on how we're doing compared to other people. So naturally you feel intense pressure to become goal-oriented in your life. Also, there's this sense of kind of on to the next, of chronically pushing for the next thing. Have you ever noticed that you might always have more on your to-do list than is reasonable to get to in one day? I do. I'm getting better at it. But what drives that? Inevitably, there's some sense of comparison, some sense of I should be doing more. And you ever notice how you're comparing yourself to other people? Inevitably, we find ourselves trying to figure out where we are on a hierarchy. I remember one time thinking, I need to make more money. And then I was reflecting and I realized, what the truth is, I make more money than some and less than others. And that's probably not going to change. It's kind of the same for anything, I'm more attractive than some and less than others. I'm smarter than some and less than others. And that's kind of the reality of it all. But that negativity bias is not a bad thing. It's what allows you to drive on the highway, scanning for the maniacs that might run you off the road. Is kind of what keeps you safe. And when we explore this sort of negativity bias and looking for the good, exploring this inner state of gratitude is about balance. If you skew too much to the negative, you'll be caught in narcissistic self-preservation. But as you become more aware of your capacity to be aware of others, it opens up a very, very interesting state. And gratitude has got a lot to do with it here. So if you want to explore kind of that swimming upstream against negativity bias and evolving the brain, if you will, it's helpful to look at what helps to set the stage for gratitude. What are the conditions? You may be familiar with that concept of paying it forward, of extending generosity to others. And I heard the story about a Starbucks drive-through when someone decided they were going to pay for the car behind them. And then this set off a chain reaction. And apparently this happens a good bit. And at one Starbucks in Florida, one person buying coffee for the person behind them resulted in an 11-hour chain of 378 people who bought coffee for the next person. There was another one that was 10 hours and 478 people who bought coffee for the person behind them. It's kind of cool. It's kind of inspiring. And of course, it's somewhat controversial. Some people felt pressure to keep it going, et cetera, et cetera. But there is something about being grateful that opens you up to be willing to pay it forward. There's a sense of how actually in the brain, giving is perceived as pleasure. And if you cooperate with others, if you receive and you're grateful, you begin to recognize that the gains will come back to you, maybe not right away, but they'll come back long term. So gratitude becomes this device that helps us do it. When we receive in gratitude, it shifts our experience. My grandfather was born in southern Illinois, and his father was a German mercenary in the Civil War. And my grandfather's name was Wilhelm Frank Kaiser. And he was born in extreme poverty. Apparently his father had a bunch of kids and died from his injuries in the war. So he was the youngest of 8. He didn't speak English. Family only spoke German. As a very small child, he was farmed out to a neighbor, and he lived in the barn and looked after the cows in exchange for food, basically. Somehow, my grandfather, from that start, put himself through college, put himself through engineering school, and for his time became a pretty wealthy guy. He built his own house. He became an executive in a company. And he was able to put enough money aside for his grandchildren so that I could go to a private school and I could go to college and not have to take out loans. And I am unspeakably grateful to him. He died when I was maybe 5 or 6. I remember conversations with him when I was, very, very small. But he died about a year after he moved in with our family at like age 86. And I keep coming back to that feeling of receiving from someone who didn't really know me, who totally changed my life. The level of education I received because of his generosity completely altered the trajectory of my life. And that feeling of receiving has inspired me to help other people in my family with their education. I sort of can't not do it because was such grace in his generosity. So I'd like to lead a little reflection, if you would. If you like, you can close your eyes. This will be just for maybe a minute or so. And if you like, you can just close your eyes and take 3 slow, deep breaths. Relax on the out breath. And if you would, just take a moment to reflect here on something that you feel grateful for. Maybe some time in your life that was just some kind of unmerited, unexpected kindness, or just some moment of unexpected grace in your life. And as you breathe, take a moment just to kind of just choose one moment. And if you would, sense if you can bring it alive. Can you imagine it? Can you recreate it visually? Can you recall any sounds or words or tone of voice? And now, can you explore the felt sense of it? That is to say, how does that memory live on the inside? Can you locate it? And then again, take 3 slow, deep breaths and just sense if you can just make room for that feeling. You might even sense if you can let it get big. Just sense why that moment in your life is so important, why it's so significant for you. And if you like, now you can deepen your breath and let your eyes open. Or if you like, you can let your eyes closed. Stay with them closed. No one's watching. You can't make gratitude happen, but you can kind of set the stage for it. And it's really just through a question. What am I grateful for in my life right now? And if you hang out there long enough, something will begin to arise after a while. I've told this story before, but I was inspired around gratitude. I decided to do like journal 10 things I was grateful every day with a rule I couldn't repeat myself. And I started running out of things after about 4 days. And so because I was so committed to my list, I started listing the body parts that didn't hurt. It seemed a little absurd, but then I realized, you know what? I really am grateful that the second knuckle on the toe on my right foot isn't hurting right now. And actually, this week I've been doing more in my writing in my morning journaling. I've been doing half hour of just free association writing in the morning. And so I've just been doing a free association around gratitude. And it's been such a great thing. I usually write very early, maybe 5 in the morning. The house is quiet, it's dark outside. And just feeling the gift of this time, the quiet, my home, this life that my wife and I share. All the gifts in my life, the opportunity to be creative, to serve, to share with you. I'm grateful for family members who feel safe and lit up. And it's a very powerful state. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how you can use that feeling of gratitude as a way of working with problematic issues as they arise. But getting in touch with gratitude really requires a couple things. Number one, it requires a curiosity, and primarily you want to explore what it feels like inside. Your issues are in your tissues. So when you begin to feel grateful for something, it's about training yourself to look for the good. So you want to sense where you feel it on the inside. You want to sense if you can let it get big. Reflect on why this is so significant to you. This is part around learning how to access and open positive states. It's a powerful resource, and it's also immensely practical. And there's a science behind it that I look forward to sharing with you. So how do you apply gratitude? I've been trying to do a lot of writing these days, and a natural part of writing is encountering writer's block. And when I'm sitting there with writer's block and I'm feeling a pressure, I have 27 days to get this project done. And I actually have a little thing on my screen that I'm looking at right now that says 27 days left. I have 2 options as to how I'm going to keep this thing going. One of them I've been pretty good at, which is using willpower, forcing myself, shaming myself, reflecting on the consequences that are going to happen if I don't get this thing done, and kind of using that kind of motivation. And so I have these techniques. I do this thing called morning pages, which is 30 minutes of just free association. And then I move into my writing and I force myself to write. I can set up a word count. And when I kind of force myself, sometimes I get into flow, and sometimes it's just like pulling teeth. We all have a tendency to kind of want to use willpower to kind of overcome the resistance that we have to getting something done. But I've been exploring because I've been inspired recently around gratitude, around sensing if I can prime the pump through gratitude. So when it comes time to sit down and I write for a specific amount of time, I start off by just softening. And I begin to reflect, I get to do this. I get to create time to create something out of nothing. I have this amazing life I'm living where I get to create, where I get to reflect on what calls me. I have this possibility of creating something that I think can be really, really helpful for people. I'm so grateful to have the time and the space to let this begin to come through. What a paradigm shift. A tremendous, tremendous paradigm shift. And so working with resistance through gratitude is pretty interesting stuff. You know, I've shared before the story of a men's group in the area that meets, and when they go around the circle, they share about their AFGO, and someone will say, well, my AFGO for this week is, and AFGO stands for, I'm substituting one word, another freaking growth opportunity. But it's actually a very powerful reframe. When you're encountering something really, really challenging, I'm grateful for this opportunity to grow. I'm grateful for this opportunity to learn something new. I'm grateful for this opportunity to develop mastery where I've been clueless before. As simplistic as that can be, another freaking growth opportunity is really a very powerful reframe. Remembering that it's through the challenges that we develop skill. The most interesting people I know on this planet are the ones who have worked through tremendous, tremendous challenges. So there's some very, very cool science that backs this up, and I'm going to try not to talk too fast because this stuff really gets me excited. And if you're interested, one of the most recent podcasts on Hidden Brain talks about gratitude and some of the science behind it. And I'm just going to share a little bit of it, and it goes into much more detail on the podcast. But you may recall the marshmallow test. That's where they take a little kid and they sit down at the table and they say, look, you can have a marshmallow now, or I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back in a couple of minutes. And if you don't eat the marshmallow, I'll give you 2 when I come back. And then there's this very, very challenging period where the kids are just sitting there, just really cooking. And what they found correlated to this was that the kids who resist eating the first marshmallow later in life showed a greater aptitude on testing and so forth. So the whole idea here is that by developing that executive function and being able to override emotion, that resilience is going to help you in life. But what they also are studying now is that developing that executive function is really, really good. But when you can tune into gratitude, it actually doubles your capacity for self-control. It's really, really wild. And when you think about something that makes you happy, when you describe something that you feel grateful for, it indirectly affects the outcome. It's not about self-control, it's about altering your brain's perception of time. And you don't need a corrective strategy. And it's really pretty crazy stuff. So a little bit more on that, because that may not sound really, really clear. If there's ever been a time in your life where someone has done something really, really nice for you, someone's kind of really stretched beyond to do something for you, that's tremendously powerful. It's a tremendously powerful thing. And just receiving that moment changes how you relate to others. So there's something here about gratitude, about receiving, that actually reinforces your capacity to be aware of others, that moves you from short-term self-preservation to a longer-term thinking. People who focus on developing gratitude, and we'll talk about how, but a lot of it is reflecting on daily gratitude. What they've noted is that people who do this are better able to engage into what's important to them. They have better relationships, have better health. Their well-being is more enhanced, and they feel less lonely. There's like a buffering of stress that comes when you are developing your capacity for gratitude. So it's important that gratitude, and this is so interesting to me, gratitude is not about developing willpower, but it's about changing what you most value. That if there's something you really, really want in your life, rather than focusing on, I'm going to grit my teeth and make it happen, but rather focusing on what you're grateful for, you may find, as many people do, that it's easier to persevere toward that. And it's interesting how as you develop habits, you can focus on very, very particular habits, to make things happen, things you do on a daily basis to make individual things happen. But if you make gratitude a habit, it's almost like it feeds all domains. That when you feel grateful, it changes your perception of the future. And it makes it easier to do that which will move you toward what really, really lights you up. So when you're challenged, and this is hard, but when you're challenged, when another freaking growth opportunity shows up in your life, to remind yourself how much you're learning, what an opportunity this is to develop your skill set. If you're overwhelmed with so much going on in your life, is it possible to sense gratitude for how much you're learning around prioritizing and really getting clear on what's the most important in your life? So how you can open to gratitude is relatively simple. It's about really asking yourself, what am I grateful for in my life right now? And just sort of wait. Notice what arises. And when you do that, there are changes that happen physiologically. Moving from feeling armored to feeling softer. Moving from wanting to make things happen to really opening and creating a more internal creative state. It not only changes how you feel, but it changes your perception of reality. It allows you to naturally make short-term sacrifices for what ultimately lights you up in the future. It's kind of moving from me to we, if you will. So when you look at gratitude, and these teachings have been around for a really, really long time. And when you look at this specifically through, let's say, meditation practice, one thing that was noted recently is how monks, let's say Buddhist monks, who set off in a very, very kind of strict regime, that when you start off, particularly on a path of austerity, let's say classic Theravadan practices, it's pretty dry. You start off focusing a lot on focus, starting on concentration, on developing your capacity to be in moment-to-moment awareness. You're focusing on discipline. You're focusing on letting go of all the things that distract you from life. So you're living a very kind of renunciate approach to life. You're letting go, letting go, letting go. When monks start out, they fail all the time. But what's interesting is how, as you persevere in meditation, there are two things that start to be released from the inside. One is wisdom. One is you start to see things more clearly. You start to see the nature of your own conditioning. You start to see more clearly into the nature of reality, how all things change, how you relate to change determines how much you'll suffer. But also what begins to be released in that is compassion. And as self-compassion, as self-kindness begins to be released, resisting temptation becomes easier. And it becomes easier to persevere toward your goal and kind of sidestep kind of the selfish, more narcissistic practices. So I like to think of gratitude as a skill. And as you practice gratitude, you could say that you're kind of developing it. You're cultivating this skill that's going to result in a couple things. When you cultivate gratitude, you're actually moving into a very profound state of non-desire, because you're opening to the fullness of here and now. And with that, it increases your capacity to stay calm. It increases your capacity to cultivate kindness. It increases your capacity for empathy, to sense or imagine what other people are feeling, what other people are needing. It allows you to use emotion as a tool. Compassion becomes a very powerful tool for changing your state and opening the more wholesome, expansive states. And then the question becomes, can you explore how to use compassion when the going gets tough? How, when you really, really want something, to shift from, I'm going to make this happen no matter what, to, let me focus on this inner state of gratitude and what truly calls me. And sense of gratitude can inform how I'm going to move toward that goal. There's another little practice that I have found so helpful. And that is how, when we're really, really stuck, it's impossible to feel grateful. And so a friend of mine was incredibly frustrated with her son, who was headed off to college, and he completely messed up. He got into partying, he got distracted, he failed out his first semester of college. She was so enraged. She was like, I'm cutting him off. He can go join the military. He needs discipline. I give up. And because she was so angry, I said, would you be willing to do a little exercise? And she said, all right. I said, okay. Just a few questions. The first one is, what are you grateful for? And then she stopped and she said, well, let me think about this. And after a while, she said, well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my husband is in this with me as well. We're both trying to figure out the best way to do this. And he's staying open and he's my ally. So I asked her to take a few breaths and put her hand on her heart and feel where she felt that gratitude. Okay, I said, okay, now the second question, what else are you grateful for in your life right now? And after a while, she said, well, my daughter's doing really, really well in school. She was having a hard time, but she's now feeling a lot more centered, a lot more focused. She's made some friends. I'm so grateful for that. So again, I invite her to put her hand on her heart, take 3 deep breaths, notice if she could feel where she felt that inside. I said, now time for the third question. He goes, well, what's that? I said, what else are you grateful for in your life right now? And after a pause, she said, with everyone going through so much challenge right now, I'm so grateful that I have a job. My husband has a job. My kids are basically okay. I'm so grateful for that. 3 deep breaths and hands on the heart. And then I just invite her to feel all the ways that she was blessed in her life. And just to sense how big she could make that feeling. And then I invited her to think about her son. I said, just complete the following phrase, if you will. What I really need to remember here is. She says, what I really need to remember right here is that he is young, he was basically a good kid, and I need to cut him some slack, but I need to be strong. For her to get to that state pretty quickly, and anyone could have told her, hey, you need to see he's essentially good. You need to blah, blah, blah. But for her to get that for herself was really, really powerful. And that is such a powerful little exercise. And we're closing in on the end of this, but I'd like to guide you through this if you'd like to try this on, because it is so juicy. So if you like, you can close your eyes. And just think of something. It doesn't have to be big, but just think of something that's just kind of under your skin right now. Something that's challenging in your life right now. And then if you would, take 3 slow, deep breaths. And if you would, think about this problematic issue in your life. Just sense what it feels like right now as it is. And just lightly set that aside and ask yourself right now, what's just one thing you're grateful for in your life right now? And you might take a moment to sense if you can visualize it. Take 3 deep breaths, bring your hand to your heart, and just sense if you can feel that sense of gratitude inside. And now bring into mind something else you're grateful for, something you appreciate in your life, no matter how small or how big. You might just sort of name it in a word or two, sense if you can see it. Deepen your breath, bring your hand to your heart, and feel it. And now, a third thing that you're grateful for, a third thing in your life that you appreciate. Can you name it? Can you visualize it? Can you feel it? Bring your hand to your heart and breathe. And sense now that feeling of gratitude, feeling how blessed you are in your life. And think about this situation and let yourself just complete the following phrase. What I really need to remember here is. If you like, you can deepen your breath. If you like, you can open your eyes. With this inherent negativity bias that we all have, the question is it possible to feel more grateful? Can we train ourselves to feel more gratitude? And emotions are powerful. Emotions can completely sweep you away. And some emotions are really powerful. It can help you move forward. So when we look at modern science, the study of gratitude in your life, the ancient technologies of gratitude, We have this perennial teaching about the power of pausing and giving thanks. And I like doing a gratitude talk after Thanksgiving because there's so much residual trauma sometimes. Giving grace at meals. And my family was born a Quaker. We had a moment of silence before every meal. And my aunt used to say, is this just to get everyone to shut up for a minute? Kind of was. But it was also a very powerful entrainment. Another little Quaker family I'd hang out with, the kids would just say, God is great, God is good, thank you for this food. Occasionally it'd slip in the rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub piece, but nonetheless, that pausing was incredibly powerful. And even now, I habitually kind of fall into that, just a moment of pause before I eat. You know, there's something in Buddhism called kind of like wise compassion and foolish compassion. And it has to do with long-term and short-term. In this podcast I was referring to, the researcher was sharing how angry he was with his father for pushing him academically all the time, unrelentingly. And later he realized that because his father kind of forced him to do all this extracurricular work, he realized that his father really wanted him to be successful. And he realized, looking back, how grateful he was for that, even though he wasn't grateful at the time. And there's that sense of really honoring the challenges in your life. And what I've noticed for those who can really cultivate gratitude is those sacred wounds in our lives can become sacred gifts. Those who felt unseen and unheard as children become masters at affirming, seeing the good in other people. Those who felt utterly lost in their family found a way to develop compassionate leadership, and on and on and on. So how do you develop gratitude? Part of it is like meditation, like focusing on the breath. When the mind wanders, you bring it back to the breath. If you want to be present, keep focusing on the present. So it's a bit cliche, but a gratitude journal is a really, really powerful thing. Look at the studies. Take some time before you go to bed and write down what you're grateful for. Because of this talk, my wife and I, before we go to sleep, we just do a few words about what we're grateful for from the day. Sometimes that includes a list of the body parts that don't hurt. And sometimes it really is a sense of reflecting on the basic goodness, and take that into your sleep. Gratitude is about celebrating the small wins, of looking for the good, of really stopping to say, isn't this amazing? And it's also about celebrating the challenges, recognizing that through loss, through letting go, we open up to a greater reality. As was said by a great teacher, that you will lose everything. Your money, your power, your fame, your success, even your memories. Your looks will go. Your body will fall apart. Everything that seems permanent is impermanent. But right now, we stand on sacred and holy ground. This may seem trivial or obvious, but really it's the key to everything. This power of saying thank you for this moment. So you might, in these final minutes, let your eyes close. And you might take 3 slow, deep breaths. And you might, in your own way, reflect on how your life has been blessed. And you might reflect on how your deepest challenges have been this forge for cultivating greater wisdom. How your greatest challenges have increased your capacity for humility, for empathy. And how the challenges in your life have served the awakening of your heart, the awakening of your mind. And your capacity to be awake to the mystery itself. And if you like, you can deepen your breath. If you like, you can open your eyes. I am immensely grateful to have had this time with you. I'm immensely grateful to be sharing these practices and these teachings. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to seeing you again.